Greetings and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing some gameplay from the game Grant, the Western Campaign of 1862. This is published by Compass Games and is designed by Jon Southard. And we're going to get right into this. We're actually going to do the comprehensive example of play from the playbook. That is this guy right here. And you can see we've got a comprehensive example of play. Okay, so I've got pretty tight view here on the top 2/3 or so of the map and the entire battlefield west to east. So basically what we're going to do here is play the gameplay example. It is set up for the historical scenario. So you've got a lot of units out on the map already, a lot of counters set up. There are also reinforcements that are a little bit off camera right now, and I will show those in a little bit. But the plan is to kind of zoom in and show pieces because the map is, the board's not giant, but it's not small by any means. So we'll kind of zoom in so you can get a better look at some of the pieces. There are some significant stacks in terms of how high they are, only because there's the way this game works is if we pull these guys out of Columbus here, you have, why is the light so bright? You have Polk here. And then, so he is the army commander, and underneath him, we have McCown. And then the 2 strength points that are under McCown. And then Bowen and his 4 strength points. And then at the bottom, you've got Cheatham and his 6 strength points. So you can see that's a significant number of strength points. And then here, you have a fort counter, major fort. And underneath that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batteries. I think that's right. It's actually, nope, 6 batteries is counted. And then, of course, we have a naval unit as well in the river there. This is the Mississippi, adjacent to Columbus. Okay, I adjusted the light, so hopefully that'll be a little bit better. So here in Paducah, we've got Grant. That light over there is so bright. McClernand with 5 strength points. C.F. Smith with 5 strength points, and Lou Wallace with 5 strength points. Okay. And then this, the colors are a little close sometimes, but this is the Union Navy. And so if I pick this guy up, you can see here, well, let me see something, actually. So much better. Oh, so here we have the Lexington. And as we saw before, we've got Confederate Navy, and this is there. So it's gray, and that's a very light blue, but they're close to each other. Okay, so up here, you've got kind of the main areas here. We have, here is Cairo. And then here you've got Paducah, as I said. And then you have the famous forts, Henry's here, and Donelson is, where's Donelson? Yeah, Donelson's here. So you've got Henry and Donelson right here. Island number 10 is over here. And then further south, you have famous places like Pittsburgh Landing, also known as Shiloh. That's Shiloh Church and so on, is down this way. We have Nashville is here. Bowling Green, we have some Confederate forces in Bowling Green. Now, this side here, this is Union-wise, this is Grant's army. This would be the Army of the Tennessee. Here's the Tennessee River right here. Up in this area, you've got Buell, who's got the Army of the Ohio. They're kind of still getting their act together at this point in the campaign. This is the first turn of February. Each turn is a week. We've got 4 weeks in February, followed by 4 weeks of March, or 4 turns. Really, I guess, slightly more than a week, because March obviously has 31 days. And then April, there are also 4 turns for the 30 days of April. There's a battles board over here. When we have a fight, we'll do that over here so you can see it. So let's get started here. And we're going to start with game turn 1. Now, if we take a quick look at our sequence of play, you can see here that we've got the weather phase, the reinforcement phase, and the random events phase are all skipped on turn 1. So we're not going to worry about that. And we're going to start right with the impulse phase. So basically, you get a cup, and you put the activation chits for the armies in said cup. So you would have something like this. The Army of the Tennessee would go in the cup, as would things like the Army of the Ohio. And on the Confederate side, you have the Army of Central Kentucky, the Army of Mississippi, and Albert Sidney Johnston has his own activation. So according to our, the weather is automatically light rain. You can see that right here, hopefully. That's the weather, light rain. And we'll get into what kind of effect that has here in a bit. But the Union player, the first chit that's drawn out is for the Army of the Tennessee. That is Grant's army. That's this guy right here. So that would come out of the cup. Obviously, I'm following the play example, so I'm not actually drawing these from the cup, but you would draw them from the cup. The Union player moves 4 ironclads, the Essex, the Carondelet, the St. Louis, and Benton, to the river space at Fort Henry. So Fort Henry is right here, sitting at the sitting on the Tennessee River, and it's very close to the Cumberland. And the ships that were mentioned are in this pile, I believe. We have the Essex, so that's 1. And then we have the, what was it? Essex, Carondelet, St. Louis, and the Benton. Okay, so I'm going to leave these here in Paducah. Those are the 3 other ships. We've got the St. Louis, the Carondelet, and the Benton. And you can see they all have the same stats, as does the Essex, right there. So they're going to move toward Nashville. Albert Sidney Johnston's Army of Central Kentucky is trying to defend, A.S. Johnston, that's Albert Sidney Johnston, is trying to defend these two forts here on the river to maintain to maintain a presence in along this Kentucky, the Kentucky and Tennessee border, basically. So we're going to take these ships, and now you have directional arrows here. And let me zoom in so we can get a better look at this. Okay, so here are our ships, and they start at the Paducah space and spend 2 movement points per river space moving upstream to reach the river space adjoining Fort Henry for a total of 6. So this would be 2, 4, 6. So 2, 4, 6. And now they are adjacent to Fort Henry, which is right here. This is Fort Hyman, which is not the same thing. So generally speaking, you've got river spaces that adjoin land spaces. There's also some up here at Paducah where these guys are. And okay, so Fort Henry has a battery which the naval units must attack on moving into the space. Naval combat occurs during movement. The units spend 5 movement points for the battle. Now they have 24 movement points, so we don't have to worry about that. They've got plenty of movement points to make this move. Okay, so now we have a naval battle. So a naval battle, a naval fort battle rather, is just a special case of a naval battle. Naval battles are resolved by the units firing at one another in a sequence of rounds using the naval combat table. And we can show you that. So here is the naval combat table. As you can see, there is 1d10 for this game, right here. And you'll get a number of hits. 6 hits means sunk, etc. You also have a damage table down here. So, for this battle, in the first round, the battery fires at the Essex, the fort's site value, which is printed in the space. So let's move our units out of here so you can see it better. Okay. So it is a 0 right here, 0. So as the battery, so we do have a battery here underneath the minor fort, or on top of the minor fort. They have a single battery. Okay. Now, the battery in a minor fort with a 0, it's on here somewhere, battery combat value chart. So you see here, the site value is 0, fort type minor. So the attack defense value is 3 for attack, 0 for defense. So they have an attack value of 3. Okay. Essex has a defense value of 2. So all of these are the same. Let me just turn these out so you can actually see them here. So here is the Essex. The attack value is in the upper left. That's 4. The defense value is a 2. Okay. So it's a 3 attack value for the fort against 2 of the Essex. Defense value. So the fire uses the +1 column, which again is in here. Difference attack defense +1. This shows you what your die roll results would be, right? So we roll 1 die, and the die roll is a 9. Whoops, it's a 9. So 9 is here, and in the +1 column, that is a 2. 2 hits, so the 4 gunboats each fire with 4 against battery defense 0, as we saw on the chart. So it's the +4 column. A die roll of 4 or more in any one of these rolls will cause the 2 hits required to suppress the battery, and the gunboats roll 1. So they had 1 roll of higher than 4. Now the Union player must roll for the damage to Essex using the naval damage table, which we just saw a moment ago, right here. We know they had 2 hits, so we're going to be in this column right here. And he rolls a 5. And that is a D4 result. As you can see, 5, D4 in the second column for 2. Okay, now the D4 means the Essex is removed from play for 4 full turns. So D for damaged, right? Down here you can see D number, prepare for specified number of turns. So D4 means he's out for 4 turns, which means he's going to be out basically until the start of March. Okay, so some bookkeeping here. We take the Essex off because it's now going to be out of the fight for 4 turns. I will put it on the turn track to return in turn number 4, or 5 rather. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Return on March 2, and I'm just going to stick it there underneath the reinforcements. Now that's off camera, but you can trust me on that. Okay, so we've got the Benton and the St. Louis will stay here. The Carondelet is going to move back upriver to 3 spots, 1, 2, 3, back to Paducah, just to keep the Confederates honest, basically. Put a little bit more firepower up here because this is where Grant's army is located, and we need to keep our supply lines open. Now, the detachment is kind of like a leader, but not a named leader in the game, and they have one combat strength there as well. So that's basically your garrison of the of the fort, and the numbers at the top, those are like the leader ratings, and we'll get into that when we do some land combat. But they get to stay here in the fort. Now the battery got suppressed, so if you flip it over, you can see it says suppressed. So I'm going to put it here with its minor fort, and that concludes that that little thing here. Now the downstream move costs just 1 MP per space, as I mentioned, for an additional 3 space, and a total of 14 movement points to use. The other 2 gunboats will remain at Fort Henry to support the land attack that is about to happen. Now, up here we have 2 transports. Okay, you can see they've got 30 movement points, but they don't have any attack or defense value. But they are going to each carry some of Grant's army down or upstream to attack Fort Henry. And so the way this works is pretty straightforward. The transports start at Paducah and pay 4 movement points to embark the units. Then they'll pay 2 movement points per space moving upstream, and then another 4 to disembark, for a total of 14 movement points used. So we're going to carry Grant, Smith, and McClernand. So we take Grant, McClernand, and Smith, leaving Wallace to garrison Paducah. They will travel on the transports, and they go to, and then they go here. So they're with the gunboats now. Nice big stack for us there. And they will now do an amphibious attack on the fort. There's no naval battle because we already suppressed the battery with our gunboats. But as we saw a moment ago, the Fort Henry is defended by a Confederate land unit that is a detachment with a single strength point. So when the Union units debark into the space, the Confederate player attempts a reaction move intended to withdraw from the space, since his unit is very much overmatched by the 2 divisions with 10 strength points total. So he uses the initiative table, which is right here. And you can see it's used for force march, reaction, and battle reinforcements. And it goes through everything here. And you have reaction rules and modifiers, etc., etc. And you would roll a d10. So basically what we've got here to figure out is he's got a -1 for the detachment's initiative rating, which is on the counter. As you can see, -1, -1, -1. That's all the ratings there. He gets. He also has to subtract 2 for Grant's initiative, which makes it a -3. You can see Grant is a 2-1-2. And then the weather's light rain, but that does not have the same effect as rain, so there are no modifiers. The die roll is a 7. Let's flip this to a 7. Die rolls a 7, modified to 4, so the reaction attempt fails, and there will be a battle. Battle's resolved at the end of the move of a unit or stack, after which other units can still move, so there's no separate combat phase. It's all done as one piece, basically. Land battles are likewise fought in a series of rounds using the fire combat table and associated tables. The attackers are halved on the first round, since this is an amphibious attack. So let's see. Here is the fire combat table. You can see there the amphibious attack is, where is it? Half. Yeah, half. Half. Firing unit attacking across river in the first round, or an amphibious attack in the first round, gets their strength halved. Now we know their strength. The Confederate player decides his detachment will defend outside the fort. I keep saying that's messing me up for some reason, and I apologize. Keeping open the option for retreat, therefore there is no modifier for the fort. If he's defending inside the fort, he'd get a modifier, but would not be allowed to retreat. So this gives him the option to hold on to the fort by retreating to it, assuming he is not eliminated. Now, the Union can get some support from the gunboats that are there. So they can each benefit 1 unit's die roll on the fire combat table, but can't benefit the same unit. So since we have 2 gunboats, actually we have 3 gunboats, we'll be able to support both units. The Union leaders, have combat values of +1 and 0, and the Union player can choose whether to have Grant contribute But if you do so, that puts him at risk of a leader casualty because that involves him actually being at the front. Grant is pretty valuable, so you may not want to do that. In this case, there's only one Confederate strength point, and a firing unit needs at least three strength points to inflict a leader casualty. So there you go. Grant will add his +1 modifier to McClernand without risk of becoming a casualty. Since each gunboat can contribute +1 modifier to one unit Union division, both unit infantry will get a +1 modifier from the gunboat support. But with the halving, each unit's five strength points are halved and rounded down to 2. So the Union is rolling on the 2 column. So again, just to kind of look here, you can see McClernand here. The first number, I believe, is the initiative, and then the second is attack and defense. And then you can see Grant. He's a 2-1-2. The 2 initiative, the 1 for attacking, and the 2 for defending. And then Lew Wallace, or C.F. Smith, I'm sorry, is the other commander. He's a 1-1-1. Both of those guys will get a +1 from the gunboats as well. So the net modifier for each roll is 2, +1 for the leadership of Smith and Grant, and +1 for gunboat. So each will get a +2. So he rolls 2 4s. So I guess you would, I would probably grab a second D10. Only one comes with the game. They both roll a 4, but they're both modified to a 6. And that, if we look here in the 2 column, 6 is a miss. So not a very successful attack there. In fact, it was basically a failed attack. The Confederate player, for his fire, gets to add +1 because it's an amphibious attack. So that is a die roll modifier of +1. Defending versus amphibious attack in Rule 10.43. And he's only, of course, has to use the 1 column since he has just 1 strength point. He rolls a 5 and also misses. Confederate player, realizing he has no chance to win the battle, decides in the second round to voluntarily retreat using the 5 column of the fire table. Right? Because the Union strength is no longer halved, so they will be in the 5 column now. The Union player rolls a 4 for Smith, which becomes a 6, and a 7 modified to 9 for McClernand for a total of 3 hits. The Confederate player does not fire since he gave up his round to retreat. As the Confederate unit retreated, this ends the battle. The primary effect of fire during battle is to place hit markers, which range from 1 to 6 hits. Increasing numbers of hits will reduce the effect of a unit's fire and make it more likely to fail morale checks. Strength point losses are assessed after the battle as a function of number of hits, and can also occur during the battle if the number of hits on a unit exceeds 6. To resolve losses, players must use the losses table, which is here, and you can see the number of hits, right? You got 1 through 6, and you get a number of strength points if it's a number, and the F indicates fatigue if not demoralized. And fatigue is automatically removed in the unit's next impulse. -1 to die roll for losing side. Okay. So the Confederate has to use the 3 column since his unit took 3 hits. He rolls with a -1 modifier for losing the battle. With this modifier, this column involves the loss of at least 1 strength point, and therefore the Confederate detachment is eliminated. So the attachment has been eliminated and is removed from the board. The Union player then moves the remaining Paducah transport 3 spaces down to Cairo, or Cairo, sorry. 1 movement point per space for a total, and it's downriver. So here's Paducah and here's Cairo. And there are 3 spaces there, 1, 2, 3. There is a detachment here, as you can see. We're going to move our remaining transport, which I had put up top for some reason. I didn't put it in Paducah where it was supposed to be. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3. He's going to pick up this transport, or the transport rather is going to pick up that unit, and it's going to move it upriver to Fort Henry, 12 movement points, and the total of this is 19 thus far, because he went 3 up, picked up, and went back. And now he's got to go all the way down here to Fort Henry, and he's going to drop off the detachment, which costs 4, and from there he is going to go back to Paducah. So we're going to just drop these guys in here, and we're going to take the transport and move it back up here. And I'm going to try to fix my stack here so I can finish what I'm doing here. I believe the minor fort and the suppressed cannon come off, I think. Finally, the Union player will move his 3 wooden gunboats, the Tyler, Conestoga, and Lexington, from Paducah to up the Tennessee River to Shannonville, Carrollville. So that's down here. You can see here's Shannonville and here's Carrollville. So this guy's going on a long trip here. So we've got the Lexington, the Conestoga, and the Tyler wooden boats, leaving Carondelet there, and the transport. And these guys are going to go downriver, or upriver rather, because the arrow's pointing up. So you're going against the current, right? And we're going to go down here to Shannonville, Carrollville. So that's right there. They have to pause in the Danville, New Portland space. So that is up here. And here's a bridge. Okay, so they're going to pause there and destroy the bridge at a cost of 4 movement points. Total cost is 6 river spaces upstream to Danville, New Portland space at 2 MPs apiece. That's 12. And from, let's see, the next, I guess that's it for their move. So we're just going to move these back down here. And they did not, in case you're wondering about Fort Donelson is on the Cumberland River. Therefore, they could not fire at that unit as it was moving. So I'm going to place a bridge marker here to indicate that this bridge between Danville and New Portland has been destroyed. Now, our second chit is also the Army of Tennessee, but since that impulse has already occurred, the chit has no effect. So it's not like you get to activate twice. If you drew this out again, because there are more than one, there are actually, I think, 2 or 3 of these. There are 3 of them. So you have a 1 in 3 chance of activating the Army of the Tennessee. It's just a better chance to get activated sooner rather than later. And in this case, it got activated sooner, and I just realized you can't see the move I just made, so let me reframe. Okay, so here's the die for point of reference, right? Fort Henry is right above my finger up here. This is Fort Donelson right below it, right here where these 2 circles are. Here's Dover. Here's Danville and New Portland. There's the bridge, formerly crossing the Tennessee, that has now been destroyed. And our 3 gunboats, rather, wooden gunboats, Lexington, Conestoga, and Tyler, are down here between Shannonville and Carrollville. The third chit drawn is Albert Sidney Johnston, the Confederate commanding general. So now the Confederates will get to move. Now, Johnston himself is currently located in Bowling Green. Let me reframe. General Johnston is right here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. So he's going to be moving his eastern forces, also known as the Army of Central Kentucky. The Confederate player has set up Pillow, Clark, and their forces, which are a 2 and a 2, so smaller forces, and a transport here to move them. They're at Clarksville. So we're going to change. Interesting. Okay, so apparently this had them set up as all 4, because Pillow's a commanding general like Grant or Johnston. But he is, so all four, and there are four strength chits, so I can just take this out and put a 4 here. Right, so he all four of his strength points belong to Clark. Pillow is with them as a higher commander. Buckner moves 1 space to Clarksville, so Buckner's over here. Now you can see the rail line connecting. Buckner has an 8 strength point. He's going to move to Clarksville. The transport picks up Buckner, and he can do that because you're allowed to move 1 space of land movement prior to being picked up by a transport, and it's going to take him downriver to Fort Donelson, unload him there, return to Clarksville, pick up Pillow and Clark, 1 unit plus 1 army leader, not yet moved, and takes them to Fort Donelson as well, unloading them there. So here's Fort Donelson. So we're just going to move upriver here. So Buckner is going to ride the transport first. He's going to go here. Now, already here in there is B. Johnson, and I forget who B. Johnson is, but he's here already. And we have a fort that has 4 batteries there. So Buckner will be there, and then Pillow will also be moved there as well. All right, so they have a lot of units there. We'll leave the transport there. All right, so I've zoomed out to give you more of a big picture view here, as we're about halfway through the first turn. Now, this is where we were just kind of focused on with Forts Henry and Donelson here. You can see the Confederates have, as we just saw, really beefed up their defense here, while the Union Army under Grant, the Army of the Tennessee, is sitting right here in Fort Henry, by and large. So the next chit drawn is actually the Army of Central Kentucky, which is this guy right here. That is this army that just moved. So they don't get to move twice, so we draw the next chit, and that is the Army of Mississippi, which is the other Confederate army. And that one doesn't have a ton of things on the map right now. So the Confederate player's initial deployment has 1 transport at Fort Pillow, which is down here. I think. Yep, that's Fort Pillow right there. So again, this was why I zoomed out so you could see kind of more of the view here. Here's the transport. It's barely in the shot because it's sitting on the Mississippi. And so they have that at Fort Pillow, and they have another one at Columbus, which is up here, also on the Mississippi. So the Confederate player is going to pick up the detachment there, which is this guy right here, and he has a strength of 1, and he's going to carry it upriver to New Madrid, which is right, New Madrid, where is it? All the way up here. So you spend 4 to pick the unit up, and then you're going upriver, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, if I counted correctly. And then you unload it for 4 more, so that gives a total of 22 movement points. So the transport's now sitting here, and they've got 2 units here in, should be on that side because it's a detachment. 2 units sitting there in New Madrid. So this is now a single detachment. So they only get to keep 1 here, and instead of being a 1, we flip it over and it's now a 2. So you can keep your counter density down a little bit. The detachments combine and split easily. So we have that going for us. Now the Columbus transport will carry McCown and his 2 strength points to New Madrid and then return to Columbus. So again, that'll be 4 for loading and then 4 more at unloading. And then 3 movement points for moving 3 spaces downriver. And then he's going to return to Columbus, so that would be 3 spaces going back, which would be 6 spaces for a total of 17. So again, we're going to load McCown on here, which is this guy right here with his 2 strength points, right? McCowan his 2 strength points. We're going to jump on our transport here and go down 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. Drop these fellows off in New Madrid and then go back. So all of that totals up to 17 movement points. And then we'll draw our final chit, which will be the Army of the Ohio. So that's Don Carlos Buell. He's sitting up here along the Ohio River in Louisville. So now that I've zoomed in, you can see they're sitting on the very northern edge of the board there. So and they are only allowed to move 2 units this turn because the army was still getting organized at this point in the campaign. So the Union player is going to use a transport that I did not put there for some reason. So there's the transport. He's going to use his transport to pick up Nelson, and it's going to transport it 20 spaces downstream, so going down the Ohio towards the Mississippi. We're going to take Nelson, who has 8 strength points, and he's going to jump on the transport here, leaving Thomas behind and their overall commander, Buell. And we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then off map. So let me reset my shot. Okay, so we're here at 15. And then we're going to go 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and drop them off in Paducah. And that's going to use the entirety of their 24. Actually, this one has 30. The total of their 30 transport points, although, I'm sorry, 28 of its 30. Then we're going to move Crittenden from South Carrollton to Calhoun, and we have to cross the river, so that would be an extra movement point in the light rain weather, and that would take up the entire unit's movement allowance. So here's Carrollton, and we're going to Calhoun, which is right here. But as mentioned, you have to cross the Green River here. And because of that, it uses up his entire movement allowance, even though it's just 1 space that he moved. So that's going to conclude the impulses for the first game turn. And the Confederate player would record 1 victory point for holding Bowling Green. Bowling Green is right here. And I'm going to just put, even though it's already on there, I'm just going to put this on here as well to kind of denote that we're getting a victory point for holding that. Because the flags will indicate initial possession and supply points, I think, supply sources. Because as you can see, there are a lot of roads and several railroads that converge in Bowling Green. So that's a key spot there. Okay, so zooming back out, we're going to move into turn 2. And so we start, as we saw with the sequence of play, we start with the weather phase, which we skipped on turn 1. So we're going to do weather phase, reinforcement, and random events phase, which were all skipped in turn 1. So for the weather phase, there is a weather chart, which is right here. Okay, so there's also on the turn record track, there is a modifier for the weather. And for turn 2, that modifier is a -1. So that is our DRM. Now, according to our friendly neighborhood play example here, the die roll is a 5, which gets modified by that -2 down to a 3. And that results in the weather remaining light rain. So we have light rain. So now comes the reinforcement phase. So the Union player, all the reinforcements are laid out over here. I can show that. So yes, right here is the reinforcements. We've got the Confederate reinforcements on this side and the Union on this side, and we're here in turn 2. So as you can see, the Confederacy will get a construction point and Beauregard, and the Union's going to get 2 strength points, the gunships, Pittsburgh, or gunboats, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and a transport. So the Union player will place his naval reinforcements, gunboats, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and 1 transport at Paducah. So I will take these 3 guys right here, and we're going to put them at Paducah, which I think it's just off map here. They've got quite a naval stack sitting right off of Paducah right now. And then after that, he's due 2 strength points, which we're going to add to Wallace's division at Paducah. So Lew Wallace is here. This is what he currently has. He's currently sitting on a 5. So we're going to take this 2, and we're going to add it to that 5, and he's going to get a 7. So he gets this instead of the 5. And he'll go back to Paducah. Okay. And Polk keeps falling off his pile like he doesn't want to be in command here at Columbus. Now we'll look at the Confederacy. They get Beauregard, and he goes to Memphis. So let's take PGT here, old Pierre, and put him in Memphis, which is in the south. Like it's off shot because it's down here. So let me reframe. So Memphis is right here. So Beauregard is going to go right there. He does not have any troops under his command at the moment. They also get a construction point, and he's going to spend this point to build a minor fort. So I'm going to just take this, and I'm going to move it to turn 3 because he gets it again in turn 3. And we're going to take a minor fort for the Confederate side, and we're going to place it. This is the minor fort counter. On the other side, you have at start Fort Henry. So this was supposed to be out. Oh, because we lost Fort Henry. That's why. This one, yeah, okay. So this one was Fort. All right. So here's a minor fort, and we're going to place it in island number 10, face down under construction. So here you can see we got the minor fort on the back. You've got build. So I'm going to put this on island number 10, that it's being built. Okay, and then we go to the it mentions in the playthrough here, the play example, that the Confederate player's plan is to build up this position and also send Beauregard to New Madrid, in hopes of holding island number 10 for the entire game. Island number 10 is worth 3 victory points, so that would be a worthwhile thing. The random events phase, no event chit is drawn, or the no event chit is drawn. So we do not have any events here. Yeah, there it is. This is the no event chit. So these go in a cup, and you draw them out. And on the February 2nd turn, which is second, again, there's 4 turns in February. So you would add events 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 no events to the cup and draw out. There are no events in the cup in game turn 1. So I'm going to move that to game turn 2. And we now move into turn 2. So it's time for impulses. As it happens, the first impulse drawn again is the Army of Ohio. On this turn, like the first, only 2 divisions of this army are permitted to move. Buell, the army commander, and Thomas's division move from Louisville to Elizabethtown, picking up wood along the way. This uses up their movement allowance of 2 in light rain weather. So we are going to take Buell and Thomas and move them to Elizabethtown, which is right here, and wood is here. Now they're off map, but Elizabethtown is right here, right above my finger. And I won't shift the map. You'll just have to take my word for it. We've got Buell. Here's DC, Don Carlos. And then we've got Thomas with 8 strength points. And they're going to pick up General Wood, Leonard Wood, in Lebanon, and they're going to bring him with them, giving them 18 strength points to sit here in Elizabethtown, which is a victory point location. So they're just above my finger there, right at the northern edge of the map. They're not really in any danger from the Confederates right now, so it's okay that they're out of the shot. And we'll zoom in when we get to some action here. Now we're going to attempt to do a force march. So we have to make a die roll on the initiative table. Since in this case, multiple pieces moving under an army commander are making the attempt, the Union player adds the initiative modifier of the army commander Buell, which is -1. Note that the table modifier for rain only applies to rain turns, not light rain. He also adds the worst initiative value among his division commanders, which is Woods, also -1. So his total modifier is -2. He rolls a 6 modified to 4. So the force march fails, yielding no additional movement. And let me see if I can find that table to show it to you for the force march. It's on here. I just can't find it for some reason. Initiative. Oh, force march. Yeah, use the initiative table. Sorry, I forgot that. Force march, reaction, etc. So as you can see, you get a fail basically on anything 4 and under. You also get fatigued if you end up with a 0 or less. Of course, this is after DRMs. You get the initiative rating and the Army Commander initiative. As mentioned, it's only light rain, so that does not apply. Force march, you add the worst initiative rating in the stack, which was Wood. Buell himself is also a -1, not the most aggressive of generals. So that's why they ended up with a -2 and ultimately failed. And when you fail, you get no additional movement points. The idea was probably to head down here to Mumfordville, but that did not happen. So the next impulse chit is drawn, and it is the Army of the Tennessee. Now, there are 3 chits for this army in the mix, so one of them tends to get drawn earlier. This kind of reflects the initiative of Grant. But the Union player gets to use only one, right? We already covered that. The Union player finishes the move of the wooden gunboats up to Tennessee, where they destroy the CSS Eastport and also the Confederate transport. So here's the Tennessee, right? And if we're moving upstream, we're heading in this direction. So where are the Eastport is here. And we've got the Tyler, the Conestoga, and the Lexington. So they move up here and they destroy the Eastport and the transport. And the Union transports at Fort Henry return to. So we're going to leave these guys here in Eastport, which is also, I guess, off shot. And these 2 were the destroyed units. The Eastport and the transport have been destroyed, so they're out. And then up here, we're going to return. Which ones were we returning? Okay. The 2 Union gunboats at Fort Henry, St. Louis and Benson. So did I already move those? No, I did not. Where are they? Are they under the... Oh, they are under the... they were under the Army because of the amphibious attack. So these 3 go back to Paducah. So they're up here as well. And so is that guy. And Grant and all his merry men are here in Fort Henry. Okay. At Paducah, they join with the new gunboats, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, and the flotilla moves upriver to attack Fort Donelson, picking up the Carondelet en route at the confluence of the Cumberland and Ohio. Including the 5 movement points required for combat, the total cost of this move for the St. Louis and Benton will be 22 movement points. Okay, so here we're going to leave these transports. So we've got Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, a bunch of transports here too. Carondelet, St. Louis, and the Benton. So we've got 5 gunboats. These transports will stay here. The 5 gunboats are going to move upriver to Fort Donelson, which is here. And they have to go up the Cumberland, not the Tennessee, because Donelson is on the Cumberland River. And this is going to set up a battle between the 5 gunboats and the 3 batteries here at Fort Donelson. So the Confederates have 3 batteries, as the site value is 2. And again, I could show you that we have a 2 right there. But you can see here the 2 victory points, and the numbered 2 circled there is the site value, so it is 2 as well. Each battery fires with a strength of 5 and defends with a strength of 2. Batteries will fire on the +3 column at the gunboats, who have a defense value of 2, and the gunboats will fire on the +2 column against the batteries. In the first round, the Confederate fires at the St. Louis, the Benton, and the Carondelet, each battery firing at a different target, rolling 3, 4, and 6, 1 hit on each. In order to suppress the battery, the Union player needs a result of 2, which requires a roll of 8 or 9, and in 5 rolls, he gets 1 such. So let's take a look at our boats here. So this is the battle that we're currently playing, right? You've got your 4 or 5 rather gunboats there, and you can see their ratings. And then the 3 batteries rather at Donelson. And okay, in the second round, in which only the 2 remaining unsuppressed batteries can fire, the Confederate player gets 2 hits on the Pittsburgh and 1 more on St. Louis. The Union player, who has some ships that are now suffering a modifier for having 1 hit each, failed to suppress any batteries, as Pittsburgh and St. Louis now have 2 hits each, which would impart a -2 modifier, and which means they can no longer suppress anything, because their best possible roll would only give them a 1 result. So the Union player has decided that he's going to withdraw them. The Confederate player chooses to let them go and fires at the remaining ships with his 2 unsuppressed batteries, scoring 1 more hit each on Benton and Carondelet. The Union player now decides to break off the battle. 4 Union ships have taken 2 hits each. The Union player obtains damage results of D2, D3, D4, and D4, which puts the ships out of the game for the corresponding number of turns. All right, so there you have that. So I'm going to remove the ships here, and they are all 4 of the ships are out, and the only one that isn't damaged is the Cincinnati. So we're going to move the Cincinnati back to Paducah here, and I'm going to put the other ones out for the rest of this play example, because we're not going to go into turns 4, 5, whatever with this. Okay, so the transport here is going to pick up Wallace's now reinforced division, which has a strength now of 7, and it's going to carry it up here, disembark it at Fort Henry, then return, and then it's going to all of the army. It's going to join Grant's army, and the entire force is going to move overland to Fort Donelson, and we're going to march them overland to Fort Donelson, and we're going to have ourselves a good old-fashioned land battle. And for that, we're going to have it on the battle display. So I'm going to reset my shot here and set up for the battle on the display so that you can see how this looks and works. Okay, so here you see the battle display. Now you have, excuse me, the Union is here, right? So you've got Lew Wallace, McClernand, and C.F. Smith here with Grant as well. 7, 8, 8 strength-wise. These 8s, they used to be 5, but there was 6 with the detachment that was in Fort Henry. So we split them 3, 3 to make these both 8. On the Confederate side, you've got Clark, Buckner, and Johnson, 4, 7, 6. Now, the Confederates retreated into the fort, so it's a gamble, because if he loses the battle, the army will have to surrender, with the possible exception of 1 unit that might be able to escape with the transport that is adjacent to Donelson. So you don't have to do this to run the battle, but it is a good way to kind of visualize everything and see it. So the die roll modifiers that'll be in play are those for the leadership. as well as a -2 to all Union rolls because of the fort. So the Union player will decide to have Grant modify McClernand's die roll, which means Grant will be vulnerable to leader casualty. The Union units involved with their modifiers, targets, and the effect of their fire are as follows. And I'll show it to you right here. So you can see these are the modifiers. Got Wallace with 7 strength points. He gets a 0 for leadership and the -2 for the fort. His target is Clark. Die roll 3, which becomes a 1, and that's no hits. C.F. Smith, strength of 8. He gets a +1 DRM for leadership, -2 for the fort. His target's Johnson. He gets a die roll of 5, which is modified to a 4, and he gets 1 hit. Then McClernand plus Grant, 8 points, a +1 for leadership from Grant, -2 for the fort. Target is Buckner. Die roll is 8, which becomes a 7, and that's 2 hits. On the Confederate side, their die roll, we have, we have Clark with 4. He gets a -1 DRM for leadership. He's targeting Lew Wallace, rolls a 6, modified to a 5, no hits. Buckner has a 7 +1 DRM. His target's Smith. He rolls a 4, which becomes a 5 and inflicts 1 hit. And then, of course, Johnson, strength point 6, +1 DRM, targeting McClernand, gets a 4, modded to a 5, and that becomes 1 hit. So Buckner has suffered 2 hits and suffered a hit in the current round, so he must make a morale check. The Confederate player rolls a 9, so the check succeeds. Now we place hit markers, and you can see them here. McClernand 1, Smith 1, Buckner 2, and which gives a -1, and Johnson with 1. So in the second round, the same modifiers apply. Buckner has an additional -1 to his fire because of the 2 hits. The same die rolls occur with the same end results on each side. Buckner now has 4 hits, Johnson 2. Okay, so now we have 2, 2, 2, and 4. So because of the 4, he has now, when he takes his morale roll, he's subtracting 2, and he rolls a 5 and fails. Therefore, he's demoralized. All the other units on both sides pass. Buckner will now have to drop back to the rear to try to rally because he's been demoralized. In the third round, the Union fires with both McClernand and Smith, so these 2 guys right here, and scores 4 more hits. He fires with Wallace against Clark, and this time scores 1 hit. Johnson now has 6 hits and is automatically demoralized. So Johnson would get a 4 to go with his 2, giving him 6, and he automatically has to fall back. He's got 1 now, so we put a 1 hit on him. Buckner tries to rally. He adds +1 for his morale rating. He's got a +1 for morale. And he gets a 3 and fails. The Confederate player with just 1 division of 4 strength points still in line decides to save what he can and retreats Clark onto the transport in the next round. So Clark is going to retreat from the battle, and he's going to get on a transport and skedaddle. Buckner and Johnson both fail to rally, leaving all Confederate units in the fort demoralized, so the fort surrenders. The Union rolls for effects of the hits he suffered, 2 each against Smith and McClernand, 1 against Wallace. Each division loses 1 strength point, and Smith and McClernand are fatigued. Okay, so this is the end result. Confederates have surrendered. So you do have this demoralized marker, which I didn't actually put out, but you would put that with the Confederate units, and on the reverse is fatigue. So both Smith and McClernand are fatigued. They both took 1, actually all 3 took 1 loss, leaving 6, 7, 7. This is the end of the gameplay example, and it finishes up with a dispatch from Grant. Fort Donelson, February 16th, 1862, Major General H.W. Halleck. We have taken Fort Donelson and from 12,000 to 15,000 prisoners, including Generals Buckner and Bushrod Johnson. Also about 20,000 stand of arms, 48 pieces of artillery, 17 heavy guns, between 2,000 and 4,000 horses, and large quantities of commissary stores. U.S. Grant, Brigadier General, commanding. So that does do it for the gameplay example. I hope you found it useful. I think it does a pretty good job of teaching how the game works, the mechanics of the game. And I also hope I didn't screw it up too much since I was actually reading it from the book. But, mistakes happen. So you get, I hope, a good idea of what the game's all about. I think this is a pretty good game and pretty interesting. And I may do more content on it down the road. Give it a whirl, playing it myself. Perhaps picking up from where this ends. Perhaps just starting over and playing the whole thing. The game does come with several, two introductory scenarios that follow the gameplay example. You have introductory scenario 1, Forts Henry and Donelson, and then you have introductory scenario 2, island number 10. It also has, as you would probably expect here, the historical campaign, which is right here, the historical scenario. It simulates the historical Fort Donelson, Shiloh, Island number 10 campaign. It's got all kinds of setup info here, etc. There's also a hypothetical for Beauregard's dream. And so you can read the scenario there. If you want to read it, just pause here while you can see it, and then you can read it at your leisure, so to speak. But that is the gameplay example for Grant, the Western Campaign of 1862. Designed by Jon Southard and produced by Compass Games. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. But that was going to do it for this one. I do appreciate you guys watching. And until next time, I'm Joe, and this is the Hexed Encounter channel. Happy gaming.